It's one essential goal by which communication is achieved and concepts can be meaningfully shared. This is what you do with your children, isn't it? You construct them and you teach them then to tell the difference in things in the forms of your own mind. That's a stove, you'll burn yourself. Look out for that. Lock your door. Don't associate with that. Practice this. Do this. Out of your own memory, you have constructed, you have created another memory form, which you call an offspring, isn't it? An offspring of your thoughts, he becomes. Remember that you've created him separate from you because you are separate from everything. You then teach him the autonomy of existence. You teach him to protect himself in association with your false shared thought forms. Now, is this a necessary part of your learning mechanism device? Of course. You are in that conflict. That conflict must be brought into a form of associate reality so you can identify your ego, who you are, and utilize that power of your mind to overcome yourself. This is the sum of the inheritance the world bestows, and everyone who learns to think that it is so accepts the signs and symbols that assert that the world is real. It is for this they stand. They leave no doubt that what is named is there. It can be seen as it is what? Anticipated. What do? You see it as you've constructed it in your mind to see it, don't you? That's what we did with the chair this morning. Each moment you can see differently if you choose to, rather than allowing that form that's created in your mind to come back to you. They have no doubt that what is named is there. It can be seen as is anticipated. Now, what denies that it is true is but illusion, for it is the ultimate reality. To question it is madness. To accept its presence is the proof of sanity. When I tell you that you don't know who you are, that that chair isn't real, that this isn't real, that there's no such thing as this, you tell me I'm nuts. Okay? Your reasoning process, separate from wholeness, has assumed a projected consciousness that defends you in association with yourself. One of us is wrong. Such is the teaching of the world. It is a phase of learning everyone who comes must go through. But the sooner he perceives on what it rests, how questionable are its premises, how doubtful its results, the sooner does he question its effects. Ready? Learning that stops with what the world would teach stops short of meaning. It has no meaning at all. Okay? In its proper place, what does it do? It serves but as a starting point from which another kind of learning can begin. A new perception can be gained, and all the arbitrary names the world bestows can be withdrawn as they are raised to doubt. And this is what we're teaching you to do. This is the expansion of your mind, isn't it? Think not you make the world. Illusions, yes. But what is true in earth and heaven is beyond your naming. When you call upon a brother, it is to his body that you make appeal. His true identity is hidden from you by what you believe he really is. His body makes response to what you call him, for his mind consents to take the name you gave him as your own. And thus his unity is twice denied, for you perceive him separate from you, and he accepts this separate name as his. Holy mackerel. Now you're caught. Now there's no escape for you. Boy, a lot of you have decided not to name anything here, haven't you? Holy mackerel. We'll be having a quiet time in just a moment. I want you to really think what your mind has been doing, so you can see that you've been the dreamer of this dream, and that now you're having the experience of changing your own mind. This is extraordinary. It would indeed be strange if you were asked to go beyond all symbols of the world, forgetting them forever, yet we're asked to take on the teaching function. This is what I just said to you. You have need to use the symbols of the world a while, but be you not deceived by them at all. They do not stand for anything at all. And in your practicing, it is this thought that will release you from them. They become but means by which you can communicate in ways the world can understand, but which you recognize is not the unity where true communication can be found. And this is what you're doing. Thus, what you need are intervals each day in which the learning of the world becomes a transitory phase, a present house from which you go into the sunlight and forget the darkness. Here you understand the word, the name which God has given you, the one identity which all things share, the one acknowledgement of what is true. And then you step back into darkness for a moment, not because you think it real, but only to proclaim its unreality in terms which still have meaning to the world that darkness rules. It's the definition of the Savior. Use all the little names and symbols which delineate the world of darkness, yet accept them not as your reality. I'm using all of them. The Spirit uses all of them, but He does not forget creation has one name, one meaning, and a single source which unifies all things within itself. Use all the names the world bestows on them, but for the convenience, yet do not forget they share the name of God along with you. God has no name, and yet His name becomes the final lesson that all things are one. And at this lesson does all learning end. All names are unified. All space is filled with truth's reflection. Notice it says reflection. Every gap is closed and separation is healed. The name of God is the inheritance He gave to those who choose the teaching of the world to take the place of heaven. In our practicing, our purpose is to let our mind accept what God has given as the answer to the pitiful inheritance you make as fitting tribute to the Son He loves. No one can fail who seeks the meaning of the name of God. Experience must come to supplement the Word. But first you must accept the name for all reality and realize the many names you gave its aspects have distorted what you see, but have not interfered with truth at all. One name we bring into our practicing, one name we use to unify our sight. And though we use a different name for each awareness of an aspect of God's Son, we understand that they have but one name which He has given them. It is this name we use in practicing, and through its use, all foolish separations disappear which kept us blind, and we are given strength to see beyond them. Now our sight is blessed with blessings we can give as we receive. Father, our name is yours. In it we are united with all living things and you who are their one creator. What we make and call by many different names is but a shadow we have tried to cast across your own reality. And we are glad and thankful that we were wrong. All our mistakes we give to you that we may be absolved from all effects our errors seem to have. And we accept the truth you gave in place of every one of them. Your name is our salvation and escape from what we make. Your name unites us in the oneness which is our inheritance and peace. Amen. Isn't that lovely? That's lesson 184. 185 is I want the peace of God, which is really all I have to say to get out of here. Try it. I want the peace of God.
I want the peace of God.
Goodbye. That's a nice lesson, 185. It says, everyone says it, but very few have ever meant it. That's what it says. Well, does the only necessity mean to mean it? Sure. All you have to do is mean you want it. But to say you want it and not be willing to do the things that are necessary is an example of a poor learner. All right? If you want the peace of God, you've got to be willing to do the instructions in order to know that you are the peace of God, don't you? And that's what you're doing now. There's no sense in coming to me and telling me you want to do this and want the peace of God without being willing to do the things that you have to do. That makes you an unhappy learner. It's kind of silly, really. You just contradict your own reality, and that time is about over for you. Was it necessary that you come into this split mind in order to know that you could come to the truth? Of course. How else would you know you had a problem? Okay? That's you meeting yourself coming home, isn't it? Good. Yeah. I'm going to review an energy here, what's been going on here. Be real quiet with me for a minute. Still your minds. You're so lovely. Hi, sweetheart. Sure. The reason I did this lesson, I want you to take this lesson into your heart and mind so you can see that this is an out-of-time reference. This reference is not even in body form. Use this one and use this body form, and this will help you because I am you leaving here. Okay. I've assumed this identity in association with your thought forms to get you out of here. You know me perfectly well, don't you? Breathe. I didn't know you were sitting there. I thought you were sitting back there. You must have changed your seat. Everything's changed here. This is a happening that has taken place in this room, in this time, in this place. Got a good good mental association with this teaching. A little too much, a little too comfortable. I'm going to run you through one more episode there. Otherwise you're going to sit with that and you won't get out of here doing that. You have an understanding at a particular level that's going to cause you a lot of problems. Sometimes you can get into this clairvoyant associations where you're in high service to yourself, and you got to get dislodged from that. Otherwise, you'll start to. There's some sort of gratification in the mind association at this new level. Jesus describes this under a cult in the teacher's manual. It's a form of reassociation that is not particularly hard to see, but given the circumstances, that's a direct quote from the Course. It can be kind of insidious because it appears to you that you're only giving. And what you're doing is serving, but you're serving man rather than God. You're serving your own illusion. And you can do that a long time as a Sister Teresa or as a fortune teller or a witch or anything that would hold you into your own. I won't let you do that with me. You'll go away from me because I'll keep offering you the truth and you'll keep wanting to demonstrate your capacity to levitate, and it doesn't mean anything to me. The least you can do is levitate. The least you can do is move mountains, for goodness sake. I mean, don't use your power in the limited association with yourself. You'll be here a long time doing that. I don't need your demonstrations of bodily prowess. I understand that you can do telekinesis and projections and astral body. What the hell is that? Nothing. All that is your retention of your own body association. You guys, a couple of you have been doing OBs, which are your out-of-body experiences. They can be very valuable to you, but remember, the idea of out-of-body is body. Can you hear that? Oh, I had a lovely out-of-body experience, and I met you in San Francisco Bay Bridge. I remember it very well. Didn't we have fun? Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. How did that get you? Where are you? You're still associated with your body. You got that called the golden cord. If I snip that cord, you'll be dead. I want the integration of your astral, of your wholeness, coming down into this, and then you'll be everywhere at one time rather than having to go somewhere. Stop thinking you can go somewhere that you can't. Will I use this vision of you? Yeah, I'm appearing to a lot of you guys all over the world. Everybody tells me how I'm coming in. I understand I'm doing that. I want you to see then that this new perceptual association with yourself will give you the direction of this teaching. Because I'm teaching right at your source. I'm teaching from source here. I know that. So do you. We're standing together right at that spot, aren't we? Boy, some of you guys have really undergone some changes here, haven't you? You're about 1,000 years later than you were. That's a nice energy, teacher. Let me see that. I used to call it Amelia Earhart energy. It's kind of nice, you know. It's got a good male sense to it, but it's still female. You guys, when I talk male and female, I'm not addressing gender. I just want you to be whole, okay? I want you to be a whole consciousness. It has nothing to do with gender. About 71% of this engendering will be of an apparent female association. Why? We're on the way back. See, we're activating the female. The necessity is to teach to that potential of return. Okay? So that's okay. We lost the male, the left brain association is spreading this way now. So we need to stimulate the female to bring it up. That's what we're doing. Be whole, never mind your gender. There's nothing to do with it. The emergence of a whole female mind is very beautiful to behold. And I look at some of you guys that are coming into your own without the necessity to assert your masculinity. It's lovely. Because you're being who you are. I don't know where you're hearing this, but boy, I love to see it. This has nothing to do with women's libido. I'll throw that out. It doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with you as a whole mind. You see? It has to do with my femininity. When I do the ballet, you know, boy, I'm really got a lot of course. What's that got to do? I'm just creating. A lot of the males get embarrassed by my ballet, you know. I think it's beautiful. How else do I do this? Boy, you should have seen me in my awakening. I didn't know what was going on in me. I suddenly began to do weird naked ballets in my own bedroom. I had no control over what was happening to me. I was doing this. And I was still wearing wingtip shoes, you know. I couldn't understand why I was undergoing this I was told by a lot of Eastern traditionalists that what happened to me was impossible, that I could actually undergo a full-blown awakening without any association here at all. It came obviously from outside the time. I did, though. Someday I'll tell my story a little more of my awakening. Remember that I was in high service. Okay, I was doing a lot of giving and extending and teaching and all that when I entered into it. But my physical awakening was very demonstrative. I should talk about it for a minute, I guess, because when I start to talk about it, it means you have to hear that. Because of this new energy association, you may very well begin to experience changes in your physical body, and some of it may appear to be distressful, particularly in this new head energy. You know, you have a tendency first to get disoriented, and then if you have blocks coming into the energy, you may feel a lot of pressure in your head because of your inability to illuminate, because there's a lot of high energy here. During my awakening, I'll tell you this one story. And this was some years now. We're talking years. One afternoon, and I was living in the suburbs of Chicago, I began to get a headache. And I was practicing the principles of the program. I was serving and doing love to the best of my ability. I was functioning in the world. I was feeling the frustration of success that still didn't mean anything to me. None of it ever meant anything to me, and I had asked for some additional help somewhere. And I began to get this headache, and it began to get worse. And it began to get worse, and not having had headaches except hangovers, and not too many of those finally, because I never had to have one. But this was like the worst that you could ever had, and no matter what you did, it was there. It wasn't in association with shaking my head, it was just there. And I stopped by this GP, and this is in Downers Grove, who is a good friend, and I went in and I said, I have this terrible headache. It was like that. And he said, let me see. And he opened up he looked at me and said, you're going in the hospital. He said, you have a pressure building in your head. We know what it is, but I want you there. Well, they took me in an ambulance, and by the time I got the ambulance, I was banging my head against the side of the ambulance. I mean, I was one of those kind, okay? And they sedated me and began to run tests on me, and my EEG was wild. I was in a brainstorm, literally. I mean, it was just off the scale. I was going through all of this, and the pain was very intense. The CAT showed something that they thought after the second day was a tumor, a pressure, and they were going to do some exploratory things. In the meantime, I've got this, I was in Hinsdale Hospital, this incredible pain. About 1 o'clock on a Thursday morning, I was lying there saying, what is going on here? And as though by accident, something passed over me, and as though they looked down and said, oh, well, don't pay attention to that. You're just, you're undergoing a transformation. You're undergoing an adjustment of your own mind, a transformation. And I went, oh. And it went just like this, shoo, and it was gone. It was just gone. I guess they forgot somehow to tell me that I was going to, everything is accidental. No. They really don't pay much attention to you. I mean, I guess sometimes I feel they just would have let me have that. You know, if somebody had, oh, didn't somebody tell you you're undergoing a process? See, my process was not connected to spiritualness at all. My process was totally physical. There were no images, there was no Jesus Christ, there was no doctrine. None of that was in my awakening. That's why I'm able to do what I do. I wasn't connected to my own awakening. Of course, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I felt very good, and I simply got up and demanded of the nurse my clothes. She said, you're not going? I said, I'm fine, I'm going home. I prevailed. In those days, I prevailed. You know, pretty much what I wanted to do, and that was it. I began to have some very strange, bizarre experiences. I mean, strange in this. Well, I identified it as a Kundalini awakening. I had no frame of reference for it. So, and there's no real tradition in Christianity for my bodily awakening. It's just not there. I found it later on. I can see, of course, the Christian mystic and all that. But what I needed at that time was the acknowledgement that I was undergoing a body transformation. Okay? And whatever happened was only then became a verification. I lost my fear. I wasn't afraid of it at that. I'd passed through my portal, at least I thought I had. Little did I know. But all this energy began to pour into me, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I turned it into creative purposes, like a lot of you guys have been doing. And that's okay, but where's it going to end? I didn't know what to do. I couldn't sleep. First of all, I didn't sleep for at least 2 months. I literally didn't sleep. I just would lie there. I didn't need to sleep. I needed to write or create or do something or formulate something with this mind. And a lot of you may begin to have experiences like this. I encourage you to do so. Now, they may not be as intense in this simply because you're willing to integrate them more immediately if you will accept that you're actually undergoing a process here. Are we taping? Is it all right if I give this talk? I want to encourage you that it's physical and that it's happening to you and that it's also mystical. It's a mystical occurrence. I'll give you one mystical story if you don't know it. I had a tremendous amount of energy, and to me it's suddenly about 5 o'clock one morning, I got up out of bed. I never did anything like before and went out and started to walk 2 miles a day. I had no reason. I had to justify it, so I bought a pair of shoes and took my pulse and said, well, I'm going to get myself into shape. Everything that occurred to me spontaneously, I had to justify in my own mind. And I had a family at this time now, and nobody could believe that I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and begin to walk. My body was being prepared for the ordeal that I had. I was smoking at that time. I wasn't sedating, of course, and this is what causing this to come about. I remember very distinctly when I stopped smoking, I was crossing the pasture. I had a couple of acres out in Naperville, horses. And I was walking back, and I had a package of Winston's up in my pocket, and a voice, you don't smoke anymore. Oh. Listen, I not only didn't smoke anymore, but I had no need to smoke. It would never occur to me to smoke. It wasn't abhorrent to me, just any recognition that I had of being a smoker was simply relieved. Those of you who recovered alkies, a lot of you have had that final dramatic experience, but this began to happen to me more and more frequently. So I didn't know what to do with the energy, so in my mind I thought, well, if everybody would come together in communication and love and energy, if everybody would start to walk, they'd run into each other and they would communicate. I had an idea that they should share, I just didn't know how to express it. So I said, what I'll do, a vision came to me that I would form a walking stick company. Can you imagine this? It was going to be called the Peerless Walking Stick Company. It was like a bright association because I discovered that when I walked, I picked up a stick. So I did all the research on walking sticks. Can you imagine? And I flew out to San Francisco and I became a cane importer. And this is about a year before my final awakening. In the sense that I arranged some tinling cane, which was real lovely, and the finial and the heads and that. And I went out to San Francisco to arrange to buy cane, and I was up in I think it was St. Francis, it was one of the hotels downtown, and I was undergoing these dramatic experiences. I was literally running a Kundalini awakening. The energy would come up my side and cross over my head. And I was laying down there going, like this, and I suddenly decided to get up and walk down onto Post Street in San Francisco, and I walked into a bookstore. I know nobody's going to believe. I'm walking around the bookstore, and a book. I might as well tell you, I'm never going to tell the story. It fell off the shelf onto my head. And it was a book on Kundalini, a psychosis, a lovely little book by one doctor at that time that was going to explain to me. And I didn't really have to read the book. All I had to know was that it was a process. I looked at it and I said, Kundalini. I said, oh, that's what's happening. That's what's happening to me. And then I found another book. And those kind of things that happened to me. Otherwise, I'm not in the Eastern tradition. I have no idea what Kundalini is. That doesn't sound like a very nice word to me. I thought it must be something that consenting couples did in private. Kundalini. What a strange. So that when I speak in those words, that's just a that's a it's just a manner in which I'm attempting to express what happened to me physically, spiritually. And now listen, I understand and was told this in one of the few direct statements made to me, that the idea of spiritual physicalness is very difficult. The actual idea that you're undergoing a physical process that is spiritual is the antithesis of what you're being taught. You're taught that the flesh is evil. Somewhere you're taught that the body is corrupt and that it's spirit that you're searching for. This is not so. There's no real difference between the body and the spirit. The difference would only be in your own compacted association with yourself. So I want to verify totally the transformations that you will undergo by the certainty, as Jesus would teach it in the Course, that you only have one function here on earth, and that's to allow this maturation of your mind to occur. That's everything. Let everything that happens to you now be a demonstration of that, regardless of what it is. Then you'll what? You'll be miracle-minded. Huh? You're going to take, like I just read you, every association that you have can become a demonstration of this awakening that you're undergoing. Need you undergo that last moments that I had when I was devastated? No, you're going to have to face your fear if it's there. You're going to have to come to that portal that Jesus talks about, that we all finally undergo. And certainly you're not the judge of your own Gethsemane. Are you the judge of finally being deserted, or the energies that demand recognition from you in association with yourself, or the fears that are engendered in your own cellular memories? No. So many times in the Course, Jesus keeps saying, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It'll be okay. These are just your own images. But when you're suddenly confronted by a horrible face or association, Jesus describes this in the Course, it's a very real thing to you. It seems as though it's separate from you. Why? You have projected that outside of you as a protection for the Christ face that lies directly behind that. This is in the Course. It's very beautiful. It says, don't be afraid to look at this face, although it drips with blood. Why? It's a projection of your own mind, and it has no reality, but it can seem very fearful. It's impossible for you to reach this too early. A lot of people like to say, well, we wouldn't dare present the consciousness with a real awakening. He has to prepare himself for that. He has to be isolated. He has to go into a temple. He has to be directed by a master. He has to undergo certain rituals of initiation. Okay, that's what's happening to you. Okay. The readiness is always determined by your own mind, isn't it? Yeah. Of course. This is what we just had. Yet the time is already set when you do it. So stop pretending that there's some sort of rituals that you have to go through. I understand the process of initiation very well. We taught it. We taught it as the secret wisdom, as the philosophia parentis, as the hidden doctrine of truth that we don't dare reveal, as the esoteric aspects of Rosicrucianism and Masonry and the Egyptian death rites of Hermes Trismegistus and all of the other demonstrations of limited mind becoming whole and the ritual involved in that. The Masonic associations are lovely. I'm teaching you to undergo the 3rd degree, followed by the 4th degree, which is called Royal Arch, which is your union with God, dear Masons. You then become what? Through the degrees of Master Mason, okay? After you complete your union with God, I'm teaching you to be a Master Mason, okay, so that you can extend from you in your own temple, the temple that you have built in your whole mind, to be able to be a master communicator, to be able to do these things that you're hearing and seeing now. What are the necessities for this? The simple admission of you. Your function is fulfilled intrinsically in your definition of yourself, which is what we just call God's naming you. He has a perfect name for you, which is your re-entrance into this new energy association. It's impossible that that not be so, since you are the only one separate in reality. Okay? After my awakening, I had to go through a period of integration. I was extremely sensitive to pain, that is, and during my awakening, but following the enlightenment, I couldn't listen to music. I had to be re-educated. The only music I could listen to was a flute. I could listen to a reed flute and it would sound pleasant. Then after a couple of months I moved into symphonic. I could listen to Beethoven, which was really my next big step. Then over a period of a couple of years I got so I could listen to music as that became part of me. I really went through a whole historic reassociation. And I had at that time no intention of becoming a teacher. I had no idea what a teacher would do. My presumption was that everybody would understand this. There was no way in my mind that it would occur to me that you would know what this is. When I walked out into the living room the day after my awakening and I said to, well, everybody knows this isn't real. Of course you understand that. It came up in the conversation, well, I know, but we all know this isn't real. And there's this absolute moment of silence. There was no way that I could associate anyone who didn't immediately understand that there was no reality to this. I mean that literally. In Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, when St. Francis throws all of his goods away, have you seen that movie? He thought that his father would love him for throwing all of his goods away. Just think, Father, I'm getting rid of all of this stuff that's held you in possession. Now you can be free like I'm free. He meant that in his mind. He didn't mean that as a demonstration of how a mind ought to be. I mean that as a demonstration of how I really thought about this. All enlightened minds are like this. I thought that there would be other consciousnesses that would know this. I thought there was an Aquarian conspiracy, and that I would run into you somewhere, and that we'd immediately look at each other, and we would understand perfectly what had happened to me. It took me a considerable length of time, and I kept searching around. I never told this before. How did I get into this? I began to look around for somebody. I thought I'd go into the Kmart or something, and suddenly I'd go, ha! That somehow we would immediately know each other. I didn't understand that that was a little bit later on in time. That's what's happening now. Okay, this is indeed an Aquarian conspiracy, if you want to look at it as that. Why? Because you recognize each other in and out of perceptual association. Okay? There's no judgment of how you're together. You simply know that that's the way it is. This is very lovely happening. That's the emergence of a new species. Do you sort of culture it and defend it a little bit? Perhaps. Perhaps. Yeah. No, I took it literally when somebody said, you undergo this experience. I said, yes, I underwent that. I went to the Theosophical Society, and I simply began to read everything that was there. And I said, yeah, that's right, that's right. One more, and then I'll stop. The second day I went to the Theosophic, I think I was into something like Dionysus the Areopagite or something, some sort of Christian mysticism. And the librarian there, her name is Mary Jo Snyder. She's at Ojai now, lovely Theosophical consciousness. I have a lot of associations with Madame Blavatsky and all of that early energy, all of the what you call early Krishnamurti energy. See, Krishnamurti was to fulfill his Christ obligations and slipped. He never quite made it, as you know. But I have a lot of associations with that energy from 1880 to 1885. That's that century-end energy. All of you do too, incidentally, if you'd like to look at that. I had no idea of how to describe what had happened to me, and she gave me a book. I forget what it was, and I went home and I read it, and I got all excited because I knew what I was. And I remember I walked back in to the library, and there were a lot of people in the library, and I said, Mary Jo, I've discovered what I am. And she said, what? And I said, I'm an avatar. She went, shh. I didn't think that was such a big deal. It would seem to me, well, what was the big deal about being an avatar? Obviously, everything that I read about that was associated. She said, you mustn't go around saying you're an avatar. I said, oh, okay. You ready? You're avatars. You're coming into your own real associations. Jesus calls you saviors of the world, Christ, right? Sure. You're allowed to talk about it now. At least around me, you're allowed to. I don't know if you want to. It's pretty hard. It is very difficult to say you're the only savior of the world if you're not going to give any credit. Why wouldn't you want to admit that you're the savior of this place? Why would that be considered to be something you created it? To save it would be only to change your mind about the things that you've done here. You give it some sort of grandiosity, but that's not what it is. It's a very humbling experience.
You're going to lose this guy.
The idea, am I still on?
Yeah, but we still haven't heard how the course showed up.
And you probably never will, either. How did the course show up, he wants to know. What was I just... Everybody's got so much energy, I can't formulate it. It doesn't hurt you to hear this. The main message that you get out of this is that while my preparations had been in my own inability to deal with my pain and all of those, the necessity for me to serve and all, whatever that was, the awakening was spontaneous, and I direct that to your attention. Because I'm teaching, if you get out of your way of your own judgment of this, it will happen to you spontaneously because it's what you are. And all the miracles that happen along the way, if you won't tie yourself into them, it'll be very natural. I had no idea what the Course in Miracles, I had no intention of teaching, and for some reason or other, I went into Unity in Chicago, and this is probably my awakening, maybe. I don't know. It's been almost 12 years. And I walked into the Unity Minister, and we said, "How do you do? How are you?" And I said, "Fine." And I was with another couple. And he said, "I wonder if you'd be willing to give the service on Sunday." Strange. I had never given a service. I had no idea. I don't know why he would. I have no idea why he would ask me. And this was at the Ambassador West in Gold Coast, Chicago. Real nice Unity Church. Mike Matoy. Nice consciousness. I said, "Yeah, I'll give it." So I went and stood up just like this in front of all these people and said basically what I'm saying now, maybe a little different. And at that time, the Course was mentioned, but there wasn't anything. And I came home about a week later, and the parcel post had delivered A Course in Miracles to me, and it was sitting in my living room. I remember I picked it up and opened it up, and I started to read it, and I said, "What is this? What is this?" And I had the habit of all the books I'd look at, I would write in the margin, "nah, nah, nah." I was looking for some, and I began, and my book is still marked. I began to look at the text, and I began to go, "What?" And I put, "Okay." And then I turned the page, and I began, "Okay." And then I began to skim through it, and I said, "What?" And at that time, I thought perhaps there will be Course in Miracles people. And I said, "Well, gee, this is going to be easier than I thought. There'll be Course in Miracles people that will see immediately that this is coming from light source." Okay? Well, no, not quite. That was not the case. Now, of course, it is, but it turned out that was the job. So that was delivered to me. The frame of reference with the Jesus Christ energy has always been intense in me. My karma is Christian, of course. I went through the Crusades with you guys. We were Knights Templars together. We were put on the rack together, and we were troubadours together, and we were Cathars together. We all have that heretic nature in us that was always persecuted by the established church. Now we're back in. Okay, this is the return of the heretic. Boy, that makes him happy. That makes Master Jesus really happy. He's very happy about this, guys. These are shared memory that we have in me. So, this awakening, let this happen to you. I've never really told my awakening story. That's okay. Okay, I see that. Who will you be as you undergo the final processes? Who are you going to be? Well, you're going to be you. You'll be you. I'm me. You'll be you. How could you be someone? You keep trying to be somebody else. You won't be. You'll just be all you, all new you. But it'll seem very natural for you to be that way because that's the way that you are. All right. It's been a very, very extraordinary day. Well, I'm going to do a review with energy now for you if you'd like. You guys are real up high. You hold your console with this. There's a lot of happenings going on. You go back out into the world with this. Be real gentle with it. Remember that some of you newer people, you don't have to prove anything about this. Just let the miracle happen. It'll happen to you. Just keep stepping back. You're in the flow, okay? Don't analyze it. Utilize it. It's sitting right there for you. The needs for you to teach it and declare it will come about in you, but there's no need for you to give dramatic demonstrations. I know perfectly well who I am, and I know perfectly well who you are. I have no need for this. We're not ready for this kind of exposure. What we want is what's happening with these lovely awakened minds now who will go out and give us some citadels of brighter light. As one consciousness hears this, obviously it's a contagion. It's a catching on of energy, isn't it? It's actually caught, and that's what's happened here. That suddenly is what's happened in San Jose. That will happen around the world. It's a little bit slow in coming, but remember that this has never happened. As Jesus says, there's never been a broad awakening at this level. So you get in on this, and then hold your counsel. You come back and see me if you can. You stay with this, what's happening here in Denver. You sign up to get into this light, and it'll work perfectly. And decide you're going to do this, and nothing in heaven and earth could ever stop you from doing it immediately. Nothing. Except your own determination to give it qualifications and not get it. Because this is a required course. You have no alternative in this. You may still want to present to me the idea that there's something else you will do but besides this, but there isn't. You never left God. Let that be the truth of you. Let that be real, rather than this. There's no need for you to verify this. Okay? The demands that will be made on you now are to come back into secularism, come back into time, share death with us, and one of the lovely consciousnesses you formerly knew is going to open up their mouth and say something, and it'll sound crazy to you. They'll say something like, well, we know that death and it's terrible, these things are happening. You're going to know, oh, no, that's not how it is. And they'll say, what do you mean that's not how it is? What's happened to you is your mind has changed. Okay? What originally made sense to you has become senseless. Okay? And what formerly didn't make any sense to you at all, the things that I'm saying, will suddenly make perfect sense. You'll pick up the Course and read a sentence. This world is not real, and that's what everybody must come to know, and that's the reason for the Course. And you go, well, of course, what other reason would there be? It doesn't have to do with relationships. It doesn't have to do with solving your problems. It has to do with this. It's what it says it is. You become what you think, rather than what you think you are. You become what you are, rather than conforming to your own associate thought forms. Okay, what is that? That's the opening of the Holy Spirit. That's the coming together in your mind, isn't it? And that's what's happening to you. Stick around. You're doing beautifully. Don't try to measure it. Don't judge it. Just let it happen to you. You're absolutely unique in that regard. There is only one of you. No one else shares completely this association. This is what I just read you. You have a specific name in the atonement principle. You look lovely, teachers. Huh? So I'm going to be seeing you all real soon. We're not going anywhere. These lovely demonstrations that you're going to undergo, then some of you newer ones in the next few days, can be verified very well by the awakened minds that are at the Endeavor Church. And you come there and get into this declaration, and then it'll expand more and more in your mind. What have you got to lose? Wouldn't you rather that this be right than what you're doing? And that's really what I'm trying to get you to look at. Why not take a chance at it? What have you got to lose? I'm not going to let you die anyway. I don't care what you tell me. It will make no difference to me. How? It's not real. Why would I allow anything here to be true? Thank you for a lovely day. We're going to have some quiet times. I'm not going to go, but in case some of you may disappear here, and all I want to tell you is I'll see you at the rendezvous point. Can you tell me where it is again? I'm sort of mixed up. Have you got any late word? It's right here? Oh, I'm glad. This is the point of departure. Wow, you've speeded up some time here, right? It's very lovely. Look at this. a lot of celebrating going on. They celebrate up in here. So you don't realize how valuable you really are, you know. It's not that big a deal, especially those who got the projects. Okay. It's lovely. It's working perfectly. So now we'll have some quiet time. Should we put some music? I'm going to take this off. We're glad you joined us today. Those of you who will be listening to these tapes, we're here in lovely new realizations of our associate love. And we're making declarations now of our mutual forgiveness with the positive identity that we come from a common source, which we call God. And coming from a perfect whole source, we are perfect and whole. And we can come together now in our minds and share that. That's what we're doing. We hope we see you soon.